Yeah.
All right. Now, in terms of the symptoms, I know we've talked about not even the symptoms per se. Let's go back to the causes. I know we mentioned just a little bit, but now in detail, because you said especially for the non-allergic type of asthma, of course the symptoms are the same. But now, what causes it? In the first place. So let's categorize them into the non-allergic. the non-allergic and the allergic.
So it's basically about the mechanism, the immunological mechanism by which the asthma develops. Allergic asthma uses IgE-mediated antibodies to promote the inflammation in the disease. And in non-allergic, it is not using the IgE antibody-mediated mechanisms. There are still IgE-mediated mechanisms, but the predominant cells involved in that inflammation are not the eosinophils, which is what we see in the allergic inflammation. These are more neutrophilic, and it's a different pattern of disease. The treatment is similar and the same, but tends to need more medication and higher doses.
All right. So as not to lose our viewers, the IgE mechanism, just to simplify it, what exactly does that mean?
So that is the fundamental principle of an allergic disease or inflammation caused by allergic disease is that the body fights against something that's quite innocent and it's not meant to fight against. And that is by producing antibodies against that specific allergen, maybe house dust mite or cockroach allergen or cat or milk or egg. And it produces antibodies specifically against that. So when your body comes into contact with it, it reacts. So when you have allergic inflammation in the airways, when you come into contact with those allergens repeatedly, that is when you will have the airway hyperresponsiveness and the closing of the airways, or the bronchoconstriction, which is what the medical word for closing of the airways is.
Of the airways. Okay. Now, just to digress a little bit, when it comes to allergies, I'm pretty sure so many people out there does not understand how does that come about. Especially, see, for pollen or dust, you might react to it by once you breathe in. Of course, you would need to sneeze. But now for a cockroach or fur or what else are people allergic to? What exactly happens? Is it that when you see it, there's something that happens in your brain and then it tells you you're not, or what exactly happens?
So these are all microscopic particles released by the different, whether it's cat or equally pollen, dust mites. They're microscopic particles that are very, very light, that we can't see with our eyes, that come up in the air and we breathe in and out. Dietary allergens, we know. We eat them, we ingest them, and then we react to them after they've been processed. However, for the inhalant allergens, the things we are breathing in and out, we can't necessarily see them. So, for example, the cockroach has a little dust that it produces on its legs and wings, and as it scuttles along, it releases it up into the environment, and we breathe it in and out.
All right, because I know some people who ask me, so someone is allergic to a cockroach, like how does that happen? Yes, all right, so it's good to have that clear.
It's the same way as pollen. It comes up in the air and we breathe it in and out.
Okay, all right. Now back to some of the causes, especially for the allergic type of asthma. I know we've mentioned things to do with pollen, dust, and all that. So how does that? Are there any other causes for the same in terms of the allergic type of asthma?
There are. You can have. We've already mentioned the viral infections, which act as triggers to close up the airways. Environmental allergens, which we breathe in and out. Ingested allergens, so things that you eat and drink. And in fact, in younger children, we see predominantly foods as well as aeroallergens or environmental allergens causing problems. In the younger children under 5 or 6, food tends to be a big cause of asthma and allergic airway inflammation. As well, things like, so you have allergic causes, you have infectious causes, and then you have triggers or irritants. For example, cigarette smoke, pollution, strong perfumes, cold weather, exercise, as we heard about.
Yes.
All these different things acted as irritants. And the way they work is that the airways are already inflamed because of this chronic exposure to the allergens, and they already have the inflammation. The tubes are already narrower than they should be. And then when you come across an irritant, for example, cold weather, it then closes up the airways because they're quite twitchy and irritable and hyper-responsive. So a trigger or an irritant will just make them close up. And then that's where we then start to get the symptoms of an asthma attack.
Okay.